Children. The topic of children is a very sensitive one for you for a number of reasons. As I mentioned before, in terms of your approaches to their sexuality, you project your fears about your own life and experiences onto your children. This is natural given the ways that you have become conditioned to live, but you are ready to leave this behind. You have been conditioned to ignore what doesn't work. If each of you were to spend appropriate time and energy working through your problems, the patriarchal system could not function. Its success relies on you partitioning yourself off and shelving certain naturally occurring elements of your consciousness and focusing on those that can be controlled by those who make the decisions in your world. It is therefore to be expected that for a time in your evolution you project your fears onto your children. They seem to be smaller or younger versions of you that are less strong and in need of direction. As you allow yourself to shift now into new ways of being, this should include how you conceive of and approach your children. How you raise them has for thousands of years been informed by the apparent wisdom of other people. Now it is time for you to understand more about what children are and what they are not, so that you can get on with the business of stepping into your true natures as powerful divine beings, and so that you can support them in their stepping into themselves as the same. In some parts of the world, the conception of children has shifted greatly in the last few hundred years. Some parts of your planet still retain old ideas. Each way of thinking is ready to be updated, and that is what I will speak about today. In some of your cultures, children are treated as small adults. Their emotions and psyches are not understood, and in fact, there is no effort made to understand them. Children are seen as people who are simply smaller and younger than regular adults and need to be trained to become adults. They are seen to have less experience and less resources than adults. Such cultures reflect a thread of thought in play on your planet that cannot understand the value of individuality. In these ways of thinking, people are conceived of as meant to be workers or part of a system, and the little people are trained to grow up and become productive members of the system. They are expected many times to grow up very quickly, and because of this, they might not perceive that there are choices available to them in how they live the rest of their lives. In other cultures, in your search to do the right thing, you have become fully unsure about what children are and what they are for. You are confused about how much protection they need and what they can be exposed to in terms of information and in terms of life experience without damaging them. You have created a class of humans called teenagers as a way of attempting to buffer your children as they grow from the realities of the world that you live in. There are many reasons why this has not worked, and I will speak of some of them in a moment. Understand the importance of judging neither of these approaches. Observe that they are attempts to figure out the right way to conceive of and approach children. One approach seems to disregard the innocence of children, while the other seems to obsess over this innocence. As you shift into deeper layers of knowing yourselves as the divine beings that you are, I invite you to observe with realistic detachment what it is you think children are and how they are to be treated. In the session on sexuality you have listened to above, I said that you are extremely concerned about protecting your children from the realities of adult living. What you are doing, in truth, is keeping them from their true natures. There is nothing wrong with natural approaches to sexuality, but as you have been living through and out of many distortions on your planet regarding sexuality, many things have become imbalanced. All of the things you cannot see how to deal with, you fear your children will experience. Well, let me tell you that they will experience it. They will have all the experiences that their souls sign up to experience. Understand that while your motivation to protect your children from the harsh realities of the world looks like a loving motivation, it is actually a fear-based motivation. Your children are humans, and they have incarnated in order to learn about what it is like to be humans. They therefore will create any and all of the experiences that they need to have in order to learn this. In one way of looking at things, you can do nothing to protect your children because they will create what they need to create in order to learn. Before you jump to images in your mind of the worst things happening to your children and fall into fear, understand that the worst things are in fact happening to children right now. As you focus on protecting your own, understand that children all over the world are being initiated into the realities of adult living in every way possible, many of them being very difficult to experience. Each being at the soul level signs up to experience what it experiences. I invite you to choose to remain aware of these facts and learn to remain grounded and not slip into modes of fear as you learn what you can about altering the situation on the planet that creates the dynamic that initiation into human adulthood must have so much violence associated with it. The easiest way to perpetuate the imbalances on your planet now is to slip into fear-based ways of thinking. Regarding teenagers, this is a way of compartmentalizing young people of certain ages in order to buffer them from growing up. Very young children, you are clear, cannot have responsibility for themselves, and this other group, you're not sure can yet handle the adult world in the ways that you do. The changes that people categorized as teenagers go through are intense. They go through a process of physical maturation that can be shocking to them as well as to the parents who observe it. Their emotional capabilities and realities are also blossoming, but it is the physical that is easy to deal with. It is the emotional component that defies your understanding and, ultimately, is the root reason that you have created this age-based category. Yet it is your misunderstanding of your own emotional nature that has led to this. If you understood yourselves as the energetic beings that you are, you would be prepared to support these younger people in this time of rapid change. Look at all the ways that you are not sure how to navigate your emotional life. Look to your history of all sorts of relationships with other people for kernels of misunderstandings and miscommunications and withholding and overgiving, and see that there are within them the seeds of knots in your emotional world that will affect how you deal with children in general, but teenagers in particular. All of the unfinished business you perceive you have from your emotional history, including all kinds of relationships, you will see threatening to come up through the reflection of their intense energetic and emotional experiences during this period. Commit to resolving these knots in your own emotional history, and you will become able to support them in growing into their true natures as energetic and emotional beings. You cannot help people from growing up. You cannot protect individuals from creating the difficult experiences they have set out to create. In other words, you cannot prevent a person from manifesting a life as a human that reflects his or her soul's mission. It will be manifest in one way or the other, No humans incarnate and fail to complete their mission. Given the wide variety of possible experiences and options when it comes to manifesting the soul's mission, there are always ways to learn what you come to Earth to learn in ways that are less painful and more painful than average. All humans experience pain. This is not something you can prevent your children from experiencing. But because of the vast array of positive and negative experiences available to them as they learn, what you can do is to support them in learning that their motivations and their choices matter a great deal in how situations turn out. This is a first step in teaching them to understand the truth of their creative power. How can you support young people in maturing in healthy ways? The first thing to do is to evaluate with realistic detachment how you've matured into who you are now. If there are parts of you that are stuck in fears about what will happen now based on what happened to you when you were a child, it is time to work through, resolve, and release them. Your approach to children has everything to do with how you perceived your experience of childhood. There is an approach to healing painful childhood issues that centers on becoming the kind of parent for yourself now that you wish you had when you were a child. This is part of that approach. In order to relate to children in healthy ways that teach them how to step into their own maturity and learn to make empowered choices for themselves, which is a way of saying step into their own creative power. You must resolve and release any and all outstanding issues you carry now from your own past as a child. Many humans in recent history have grown up in the midst of an identity crisis in the collective. For decades, many humans have had a measure of confusion about what it is that makes a human a human. Gender roles and sexual identity, and where a person fits into the social hierarchy based on gender, race, religion, and other factors, have been shifting out of their past versions of normal, such that many individuals have felt confused about who they are and/or where they fit. All of the old structures have been necessarily falling apart. This shift in the way that your society is held together has intense ramifications on the emotions and the psyches of individuals. Many of these people grew up expecting a certain kind of living, in fact, banking their capacity to create stability on the kind of person they could grow up to be. The collective seemed to hold a place for them via exploring a number of preset roles. When they grew up, they found that something key had changed, and they no longer had the option of knowing who they would turn out to be. As you have been living through this time of immense change, the last few years, or perhaps decades, imagine your parents and grandparents living through the beginnings of the shift. They encountered real cues that what they expected to find in the world for themselves and for themselves within themselves was not what they expected. Some of you feel that you are now going through traumatic times. Imagine what it was like for those who came before you, seeing the first cracks in an otherwise perfect dam that had been firmly in place and gluing things together for as long as anyone could remember. As you, as a collective, have been exploring just what it is that you do find when you grow up, and consider this in terms of what you were told as children that you would find when you grew up. This adds to the difficulty of understanding what you will do with your children, how you will approach and treat them, gaining insights into adult reality via wake-up calls about having to change, alter, or abandon your expectations about what life will turn out to be like for you. Many of you have perceived that you have lost an innocence that is your birthright. Many of you have thereby felt that you did not have the kind of childhood that you wanted or that you deserved. And this adds to the difficulty of what you do with your children. Do you teach them that the world is harsh, and so they must learn to adapt to difficult scenarios in order to survive? Or do you teach them that they should be protected from the harsh realities of the world, perhaps shielding them totally, or as much as possible, from the sorts of realities that adults experience? What would you do? Which in your mind is the better approach? Your answer has much to say about how you experienced your childhood and the transition into what is considered adulthood. No matter what age at which you experience this transition, I invite you to observe clearly and with detachment what was important about that process. I would like you to look at what in your experience was difficult, but worth the experience, and what in it was useful, but perhaps could have been learned in a less painful way than you experienced it. Doing this will bring clarity to how you should approach children now, enabling you to recognize more truth about the lessons that humans create for themselves, no matter what, no matter who is trying to look out for and protect them. The conceptions of what children are form the basis of your approach to them. As you shift your perceptions of what a human is and move into knowing yourselves as powerful divine beings, you begin to see that small and young people are not the powerless, defenseless beings that you have told yourself they are. You have, over time, perceived yourself as a species as powerless, and you have therefore taught your children that they are powerless as well. You have ingrained in your psyches the fear of all that will happen to your children if they are not protected. You have done this because you are not sure how to understand that you have created all that you have experienced. Embracing this truth, not as an idea, but taking this truth into your heart and into your bones, your very foundation, will change how you see yourselves. Throughout your history, you have felt at the mercy of outside forces. You have perceived that the world and the forces of nature and even Goddess and God herself and himself have acted upon you. This is the mindset that has become cemented deeply in you during the Piscean Age, the period of a couple thousand years, and you are now beginning to see come to an end. In that way of living, decisions are handed down from someone more qualified than you to make decisions. You have therefore been, for thousands of years, deeply rooted in the belief that you are not smart enough or informed enough to make decisions for yourself. You have believed that you are not powerful enough to create your own reality, that you are not qualified to create the world around you. It has been shown to you again and again that other people have the right to make decisions for you, and that other people are the ones in control of your life. If there is one thing I wish to impart to you above all others, it is the view on you as the powerful divine creators that each of you is. All of the messages that I bring to you through this channel are focused on revealing to you this truth in its complexity. I intend to show you the truth that all along you have been creating everything that has ever happened to you, and that you are doing so now. I intend to reveal to you that in order for you to inhabit your true divine natures, you need do nothing but grasp with clarity that you are already powerful creators. This will result in a shift in consciousness that will propel you into inhabiting your true natures. Approach your children as the powerful divine creators that they are. Inhabit yourself fully as a powerful creator, And then commit to hold space for them to learn about themselves as the same kind of being from you, from the example of the high possibility of yourself that you embody. I would like for you to understand that because you are powerful creators, what you focus on is what you create. If you are carrying fear and unprocessed trauma and pain from your past, and you channel that into fear about the need to protect your children, you thereby create dangers for them. What you fear most is what you draw to you, what you attract into your world. Like attracts like, and if you want to ensure that your children are safe, first understand that there is no such thing as safety. Commit to coming out of fear-based attitudes that expect bad things to happen and thereby creating precisely what is feared. And teach your children to trust themselves and teach them to make decisions that work for their highest good. As I said, you must go through your own emotional history first to prepare you to be able to hold space for your children to learn. Anyone who is to really learn things must be free to make his or her own mistakes and learn from them. Again, you cannot protect your children. What you can do is to teach them to stand up on their own by offering them a solid model of self-love and self-care that is realistic, grounded, and committed to processing and releasing fear whenever it is encountered. Imagine a world full of people confident enough to care for themselves in the right ways and clear enough about their own personal creative power to take responsibility for all that they create. Understand your own power and then teach your children about theirs, and you will begin seeding this world. It is not difficult, and it need not take as many thousands of years as it has taken you to learn that you might have no power. Begin now and you will be changing how things work on your planet. Again, your children do not need protection. When you think this way or perceive there is a threat in their world, look to what unprocessed pain from the past you are still carrying. Choose to take on healing that pain so that you can be for your children what at the soul level you have signed up to be, a model for how to live as a human. You are being invited from all sides to revisit what it means to be human. I, in particular, invite you to gain the bird's eye view on all that is happening and why you have created it to be so. Those who find themselves unable to have children. There is an energetic, biological imperative at play in your energy fields, and it is to procreate. All life exists to perpetuate itself in this way. I would like to offer some perspectives to those of you who wish to have children, but find that you are unable to do so for one reason or another. There is a variety of reasons that this situation occurs for you. One thing to look at is your emotional history and the impacts of your many lives on your present life. Procreativity is linked to creativity, and as we have explored elsewhere, the natural human routes to procreativity and therefore creativity have been under pressure the last several thousand years to be something other than what they naturally are. They are expected to be brought under the control of a particular mindset, which seeks to limit expression. For those of you who desire to have children but cannot, please look deeply into your emotional and energetic history over this life. Understand that this life is a microcosm that condenses all of your lives as a human into one portion of the timeline. What issues surround the natural and free flow of creative energy have you experienced? In what ways have you felt your natural impulses suppressed? In what ways have you, as a result, envisioned yourself as powerless to inhabit yourself as you naturally are. Each and every one of you is at this time confronting the history of your perceptions of powerlessness. I invite you to look at this with open eyes and a detachment, and to commit to looking down on the layers of your history as a human in many different lives in order to understand the emotional sources of these issues. Some of you will spend a tremendous amount of time, energy, and other resources in order to uncover the physiological root of the situation. I also wish to point out to you that throughout your history, the last several thousand years, a woman in many times and places has been thought of as a machine for creating, birthing, and raising children. There are, therefore, some of you experiencing this who, when you look into your history over many lives, you will find that you have in various ways felt trapped by the expression of your creative power. There has not been much attention paid to the effects of bearing and birthing 8, 10, or a dozen or more children has on the woman doing the bearing and birthing. Some of you might find now that you have accumulated in your energy field grief, regret, sadness, powerlessness, and other intense and negative emotions, all of which are centered on your reproductive organs. This is true of those who have been born as women in this life, as it is true of those who have been born as men. You have all been each gender many times over the course of your various human lives along the Earth timeline. You have each and every one of you sought to understand life from many different perspectives. So this situation can be true of a man who is infertile, just as it can be of a woman. If you are experiencing this situation in any way from any side, as a woman or a man, and regardless of the details of the physiological explanation you have been given for this situation, you have an invitation to learn to accept the truth of the situation and what you might be carrying in your energetic field that is preventing you from having a child. I invite you to commit to seeing down through any and all layers that might be in place in your energy field, the emotions and the memories and beliefs surrounding the natural expression of your inborn creativity. And yet I also invite you to cease judging yourself for being in the situation you are in. Because of the nature of the biological imperative to reproduce, many of you feel that there is something wrong with you, that you cannot. This thinking is convoluted. It is a result of the pressure that has been put on men and women for the last several thousand years to provide children in order for the patriarchy to survive and flourish. Part of this pressure has to do with valuing women who can provide children and not valuing other women. Well, what is it that makes a woman? Answer this for yourself. Allow all options that come up to be heard by you. Look at what you have received from your elders and ancestors and other culture shapers as an answer. Look at how you have received the teaching about what a woman is supposed to be and what she is supposed to do. And when it comes to men in this situation, you are challenged because you are seen not to be enough of a man. Well, this is another cultural bias. What is it to be a man? For thousands of years, as this social system you have been living into and through has sought to first seed its power over your consciousness and then maintain that power, the most valuable resource on the planet has been children. As long as they can be raised in the same social structure and grow up to provide more children to be raised with the same mindset. You need to come to grips with the fact that your social systems for the last almost 6,000 years have sought to turn you into baby-making machines so that there can be particular balance of power to keep in play. that keeps the vast majority of people feeling low about themselves so that a small minority can use them and thereby feel good about themselves. I further invite you to look at why you would have created this experience for yourself while not judging it and yourself for experiencing it. There is nothing that happens to you that is not your creation. Nothing occurs in your life that does not serve the journey of your soul. Part of your journey as a soul having a human experience is to encounter difficulty and pain. Yet another part is to learn about yourself through what is most difficult for you. For some of you, it is true for now that you cannot have a child. For others, it is true that you will not at any point in your life. What soul contracts might be in place for you? Perhaps because of the particulars of the genetic sources you needed to have to bring you to life, this time, your family, and the particular genetic sources that those with whom you have soul contracts to be parents to, the children that is karmically arranged to be in your life, could not possibly be born from your body. It could also be true that if you have felt used for your body in producing children in other lives, and it is now energetically catching up to you, you might have signed up to experience being a parent in this life without giving birth. These are two sorts of cases in which adoption answers the call of the soul contracts, yet there are many others. Again, what is a woman? What is a man? What is each for? What is a mother? What is a father? You are living in times when the difficult and the wonderful experiences of many lives are catching up to you, and it's time that you begin to live in the moment and live what matters to you and do what you need to do when you need to do it, while surrendering the hold that the social mores and judgments and instructions from the last several thousand years have had on you. What is a mother? What is a father? What defines what a mother and a father are? There are also those of you who are unable to have children who do not wish to adopt. There is no judgment from me about this. I encourage you to know what is best for you and to honor what you need. I will say more about this in the next section. Those who choose not to have children. I would like to speak now about those who choose not to have children. Whatever the reasons for this, there can be a great deal of social judgment that arises from the inability to understand why someone would choose such an experience for themselves. The combination of the biological imperative that many feel they cannot resist and the social pressure to bear children leaves many unable to understand this choice. There is also that fact that many of your social rituals are built around the bearing and raising of children. And so when people opt out of this process, sometimes they can feel, or others can feel, that they are somehow less relevant as social beings. Not all making this choice will experience that, but some certainly will. The reasons for making such a choice vary. Some of you will find that you do not want to bring more beings into an overcrowded world that is so deeply confused about itself, that this world is not the right kind of place to raise children. Others of you will be so deeply unprocessed about your own experiences when children that you cannot imagine being a parent yourself. Others of you have karmic memories of horrible experiences and perhaps death resulting from bearing children. Still others of you have spent so many lives bearing numerous children that it is time for you to take time to nurture yourself. If you are someone who feels a need to devote the kind of time and attention on yourself that having a child would prevent, I encourage you to do this for yourself. You highly likely have a dearth of nurturing available to you in some of your other lives. It may be time for you to give yourself all that you need now in order to feel that you have the right kind and amount of love in this life, so that you learn that you are the source of love. There may also be those of you making the choice to not have children who cannot relinquish being the center of attention, and know with certainty that children become the center of attention as soon as it is known that they are being gestated within the mother. This is also fine. If you feel this, then this is a part of your journey and you should honor it. The bottom line on all these various scenarios is that you need to give yourself what you need and learn to let go of the judgments or perceived judgments from others about your choices. What you need to experience as a human is precisely what you will experience, and by accepting this overarching truth, you come closer to leaving behind the social instructions about what love is and where it comes from. Perhaps it is time for you to focus all of your attention on you. No one but you can know that, and I encourage you to do for yourself what you know you need to do. Thank you.